guess I'm really interested in hearing your story and how you came to be involved in this stuff. So I was interested to know what first sparked your interest in this field that has become to be known as NLP.
Well, it's a great question, Jamie. I started in this field really because I met John Grinder at the University of California at Santa Cruz, where I was a student studying religious studies and anthropology. And John and some other people that you'll recognize the names, Steve Gilligan, Richard Bandler, Paul Carter, Frank Puslik, Leslie Cameron Bandler, would come to this house over in Scotts Valley, just down the road about 7-8 miles, and have these Wednesday evening get-togethers, and sort of we're in that process of sort of developing some of the, I think at the time the representational systems were starting to kind of develop. And I was a poor college student, single mom with a little boy, and I was working nights at a restaurant over in San Jose and going to the university during the day. And I happened to work on Wednesday night, so I never really participated in these things. But, got to be introduced to John and to Richard, through that time. And at one point John asked me out. And we went out on a date and spent the next 15 years together. And at that time, the manuscript, Structure of Magic, it was just a manuscript. It was just about to be published by Science Behavior Books by Bob Spitzer. And John gave me a copy of that manuscript to read and just asked me what I thought about it. And I said I thought it was evolutionary, in the sense that people would be able to understand a lot of their experiences in a new way, and that they would have a way to sort of hang them like on a hat rack that gave them a form so they would be integratable, be able to integrate them, that it would make a difference, and it would free up energy for people to evolve themselves. And then I also said I thought it was revolutionary in the sense that, you better watch out, because people are going to hear this wrong, are going to hear it a little bit like everything is wrong, and we know the right way, and a lot of that did, happen in the early days. So that was my involvement. I never saw it so much at the end of a problem-solving frame as much as I saw it as a way to release energy in terms of evolving the human being.
And that's a fantastic starting point for this discussion, actually,
Right.
Because I think the way that NLP is often taught is as a problem-solving frame, and I've often done that myself. In terms of many of the techniques have that kind of structure and so on. So as you developed your own understanding and application of NLP, how did you sort of pursue that idea of it being an evolutionary tool, evolutionary model?
Yeah, I think there's I think I'd have to kind of answer it in retrospect a little bit, because I think, first of all, if you just think about the virus in a positive way in the system, that NLP was always about building models. But, that was Richard and John's, explicit, in my memory, focus of attention was, can we create models? And, John would look around the world and go, what do I want? What can I take in? And then look around the world and go, who else could use it, for example? And maybe Richard would go look around the world and go, who has a problem? Can we build a model to apply or something? But the first models that were created were problem-solving models.
Right.
So it was Virginia Satir, it was Milton Erickson, it was Fritz Perls, and these were all people who were involved in helping people solve, family problems, personal problems. So it kind of got this funny little thing in it where, in the perception of the world, I think people assumed this is about problem solving and it's kind of a therapeutic application. But I think that was an accident of the history, in the sense that those were the first models built. If you go all the way back to the tote, there's two parts of the tote. One is where I'm at, and one is where I want to be. And I think for me, it was almost just a question of, my attention was always sort of towards where am I going? What's being kind of called out of me at this time? instead of on, where's the problem?
Right. So the other end,
it was just a question of attention for me, I think.
And because you've trained countless people over the years in how to apply NLP, how to use NLP, and how to, I guess, open up their thinking in a variety of ways to get more possibility, more of the results they want, and that sort of thing. What are the kind of challenges and obstacles that people often encounter? This is sort of going to the problem end of it first, and then to the what are the challenges that people encounter in really integrating and learning these skills, and how do you overcome those?
A couple of ways. I mean, I think probably the biggest challenge that people have to integrating the skills has to do with permission or motivation. To be honest, giving themselves permission. One thing that comes to my mind is there's a story I think it's by Richard Feynman. And Richard Feynman, when he's a kid, he was a Nobel Prize winner in physics, right? Just a funny as hell guy. Guy was so funny. 100% genius and 100% buffoon, I've heard him say. And when he was a kid, he was taking a walk with his dad, and he asked his dad, he saw some bird, and he asked his dad, what kind of bird is that? And his dad said, well, that's a Spencer's warbler. But in Italian, they call it the tutti tutu, and in French, they call it the hip-hoo, and in Chinese, they call it something else, and in Japan, they call it something else. And told him all these names. Of course, he made them all up, but he told him all these names of this bird, and then he goes, and now you don't know anything about the bird, do you, really? You don't know anything more about the bird than when we started. So a lot of times I think that one of the biggest things from my perspective is how do you get the person to sort of release themselves a little bit from the word is not the thing, and my conversation is not necessarily the experience. I think that's one thing. Another thing is, recently I read a beautiful quote about, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but it was a Buddhist for sure. It said one of the great paradoxes about a spiritual path is that, or a spiritual discipline, that's it. One of the great paradoxes about a spiritual discipline is that it's the path to lead you where you already are. And I think very much the same about sort of personal development ideas. I mean, they're beautiful pathways, but they're really to lead you where you already are. And inasmuch as I can remind a person of their ultimate perfection at any moment in time.
That's fantastic.
That would be what I think. And it's only a question of becoming present.
It's interesting. I read that the Oprah, for the first time ever, has put a personal development book on her Oprah's book club list.
Eckhart Tolle?
Yeah. Done a webinar to 2 million people around the world.
I know.
And it's about exactly that, about being present, about the idea that you're already enough.
You're already enough, yeah.
And that really ties into what you said about permission. And I'd really be interested to hear your ideas, because I find that permission is one of the things that has challenged me in various areas, but also many people, I find, permission to have what they want, permission to truly be themselves. What are some of your ideas about that, and how to work with that?
Well, it's a great question. One of the things that comes to my mind is permission. I think Robert Dills would say this too. Permission and motivation have to do primarily with belief. Either belief about myself or a belief about somebody else or the world in some way. So, it has to do with how do I reflect on that belief about what I'm capable of, or that belief about who I perceive myself to be. And it's just a different question than asking it, who am I becoming? If I have a belief that limits me, or if I have a frustration in my life, or if I have a great grief or sadness in my life, first of all, it's human. you know, and we are, you know, we are human. And second of all, like anything on the journey of life, I would say that is the way the calling presents itself. That in and of itself is the calling.
The idea of where you stumble, that's
Yeah,
where you find your gold.
exactly. That's where you find your gold. And you know, it's easy to say, hey, well, you know, drop all your beliefs, but that's not really. I don't know if that's even possible, because you're always going to have beliefs. You know, I mean, even if they're beliefs about beliefs, not to have beliefs, they're still beliefs. You know, I don't know how to get around.
Even the belief that you can drop all your
your beliefs, exactly. So it's like, I go, you know, we're always going to have filters on the world. We're born with filters on the world. We're born in a certain form, you know, with a certain range that we can see and hear and sense that's different than my pup Ruby over there, you know. Taste and smell, and so those are our species filters. Those are our, you know, filters as a species. Everything else is pretty much packed in there by learning, you know. So the ones that are packed in there by learning, I think, you know, we have to. And this is kind of the question you ask, is, you know, how do we balance the sense of my evolving self in an evolving and changing world, and kind of try to find that balance between the tasks of the world and relationships of the world. And but it's first with me. I always tell people, if there's something I can't do on the inside, it's probably not likely I will easily do it on the outside. I can't do it on the inside.
And to make sure I understand what you mean by that, is that along the same lines of, if I can't imagine myself doing it, I'm not going to be able to do it? Or do you
Well, it's more like if I don't have a good relationship with myself, it's kind of hard to have a good relationship with other people.
Right.
I mean, I remember I worked with a man who was a hypnotist years ago. He was in our training, and I really apologize that I can't think of his name right now. And I remember him saying, you know, Judy, when you meet somebody that you really, really like, you know, take the step back and notice what's resonating. What's that human spark that resonates between you and this other human being, where you see your reflection and they see their reflection in you, which is so beautiful. And he goes, but when you meet somebody that really, you know, sort of jerks your chain, pushes your buttons, you know, really annoying you, take the step closer and ask the same question. You know, what of myself am I seeing in this person? And what of this person are they likely to be seeing in me? And that's how we grow.
Yeah, isn't that annoying?
And it is annoying. And it does take permission instead of,
sure.
damn you.
And acceptance.
And acceptance, yeah.
I mean,